Chapter 119 and 120. Rei, Conan, Mei, and Ringo traveled quickly to the west, not stopping until they reached the sea. What now? Ringo asked, looking at the calm waves of the shining water washing the sandy shores. She had no idea what Rei wanted to do since they didn't go to any port city. He clearly didn't want to leave a paper trail of their departure from the country nor any witness, but here they were, in the middle of literally nothing. Ringo knew they wouldn't be able to water walk to the other side of the sea, no matter their chakra reserves. At least, she definitely could not do it, hence her confusion. All of the team downpour gave Ringo a questioning look that stopped her in her tracks, making her furrow her eyebrows and adorn a pondering expression before a realization struck her. So we will fly. She more stated than asked. I think it was too long since I did missions with Conan and Rei, so my memory can be a bit slow. Hee hee. Ringo awkwardly laughed, trying to avoid the pointed and amused looks from the team downpour. Rei just chuckled and came closer to Ringo, putting his hands around her waist with a mischievous expression, causing her to blush and look down as Mei silently snickered in expectation of Ringo's reaction. Shiwa dash. Ringo shyly started, but then her entire world as if blinked in and out, and she was hit with the feeling of peacefulness, and yet she was also greatly cowed as the full might of natural energy in Rei's dimension fell onto her shoulders due to her entering it for the very first time. Ringo was in awe and so shocked she forgot how to breathe as the waves of energy washed over her body, the world as if slowed to crawl as her pupils dilated and her throat tightened. And as soon as it came, it went, and Ringo found herself staring at a small town from a hill behind it. Rei smiled knowingly at Ringo, unhanding her. She didn't spend even a second in his dimension, but her starstruck expression was something he expected. Mei reacted much the same, and even now she was a bit out of it from time to time. Unless one bonded with Rei, nothing he could do about that. On the other hand, at least because of Mei not being bonded with Rei yet, they found out that training in the dimension makes chakra reserves grow faster. There would be no way for Mei to have enough chakra to defeat a 10,000-strong army otherwise. Oh, we are here, Rei said, pulling Ringo out of her reverie just in time for her to spot Conan blinking into existence 2 meters away from them. Holding Mei around her shoulders in a similar manner, Rei held her around the waist. Wait, where is here? No. First, tell me what the heck was that? Did you find a way to teleport? That was not a speed technique. No, what the heck was that place full of gigantic trees, massive roots, and energy? God, so much energy. Ringo muttered to herself in a crazed manner, breathing so hard she was close to hyperventilating. How can something like that exist? There is just no wadash. Rei's lips suddenly landed on hers, making her eyes widen as she leaned into the kiss, her arms snaking around his neck. Ringo pulled herself closer to Rei, deepening the kiss as her previous thoughts evaporated from her mind. It took a while for them to pull away, much to Mei's ire. Unfortunately for Mei and fortunately for Ringo, Conan had Mei's shoulders in a vice grip while giving her a barely noticeable smug smirk and shaking her head, so Mei could only pout and watch, stewing in her own jealousy. You calm now? Rei whispered to Ringo, who meekly nodded, laying her head on his shoulder to prevent him from seeing how flushed she was. Rei chuckled, making her shuffle closer to him. Now then, we are in the land of waves and our destination is the land of whirlpool. We need a new base, after all, Rei said, making Ringo's eyes widen. Before she could say anything, however, Rei left the embrace and gestured for her to follow, and Ringo could only huff in exasperation. Soon after, the 4 ninjas were traversing through the sea between the land of waves and the land of whirlpools. Finding Yuzushiogakure was not really a problem. The problem was getting inside, since the entire village was shielded by multiple sealing arrays, either geared to cause sickness, weakness, or Rei's favorite, a seal that actually inflicted chakra poisoning on an intruder if he stayed too long. There naturally were also instant kill sealing arrays and other offensive seals strewn all over the Yuzushiogakure. The mystery of why the villages didn't have so many Uzumaki sealing scrolls was finally unraveled. The entire place was a death trap designed to not let anybody who enters to leave alive. Only a Jonin would be able to get out once he enters, and even then he had to be very, very lucky. That explained quite clearly why Kirigakure had so many low-level sealing scrolls of the Uzumaki clan, but none of the higher quality. They simply couldn't manage to retrieve them before dying. After all, it took Rei quite a bit of time, 3 months to be exact, to first find out every single seal in the whole village and then change them so they would allow him and his party to stay without fearing to be either incinerated, poisoned, flayed alive, or frozen to death due to activating a hidden seal. While the world waged war, Rei was cracking his head, trying to find a solution how to make Yuzushiogakure safe for his team, as Conan made sure to whip Ringo into shape while adding what she previously did not teach the woman, lessons on anti-indoctrinations a la Conan, which basically meant she was indoctrinating Ringo to be loyal to Rei. Not like Ringo didn't see it. She was too experienced not to. She simply went along with it because it was what she wanted. During this time, Mei followed Rei like a puppy, trying to be cute and endearing. Rei knew she wanted a kiss since she saw him kissing Ringo, someone who didn't spend that much time with him. Mei simply felt Ringo was getting ahead, and it took 2 months for Rei to finally break. To his eternal dismay, since then Mei became a lot bolder and demanding, which only prompted Ringo to be the same. The two started an odd competition for his affections. He could only sigh in exasperation, especially when Tsunade heard of it and laughed her ass off on his account. Yes, he had to spend every night with either Tsunade or Conan since Mei and Ringo started competing. Otherwise, he would long ago lose his nerves and go apeshit on them. In the end, Tsunade made sure to persuade him in a very heated conversation that he had to bond with the two women soon if he wanted peace and calm. After all, the bonding made them feel like sisters, and while Mei and Ringo would most likely still retain some kind of competitiveness among them, it won't be the ferocious kind. Finally, the months passed and Rei was finished with the entire Yuzushiyogakure, and the only thing that was left was to name their group. After all, they were a gathering of 3 S-rank and 1 SS rank ninja. They naturally needed a proper name to represent them. Or so, argued Mei. And such was the beginnings of Yozora. Another 3 months passed and the Third Shinobi World War has just entered its third and final year. During these 3 months, Rei finally bonded with Mei and Ringo, and since then, 2 hours of his day had to be sacrificed for the 2 needy girls. Thankfully, Mei respected Rei's reluctance to sleep with her before she reached 15 years of age, and Ringo respected Mei and waited for her to have the first turn. It brought Conan and Tsunade an untold amount of amusement when they saw Rei trying to pry Mei away from him, or when the 2 girls argued about inane things like which one of them has softer lips. Rei would say Conan was the winner hands down, but he was too clever to open his mouth in front of his girls. What brought amusement to Rei was Ringo's reaction when she found out that Tsuna was actually Tsunade, one of the Konoha Sannin. Ringo flat out fainted when grinning Tsunade with her hands balled into fists and put on her hips cheekily told Ringo who exactly cured her disease. The funniest moment, though, was when Rei showed Ringo the dimension. The poor woman could not properly breathe for 5 hours and had to crawl while being taunted by Tsunade and Conan as they dangled Rei's specially made dango, Ringo's favorite food and the only thing he was addicted, as they found out in the past months, in front of her face on a string while she was creating a path by drooling onto the ground. Rei really had no idea if he should roll on the ground from laughter or stop his 2 cruel women. In the end, Mei decided for him when she brought popcorn. Fun was nice and all, but these past 3 months were also quite busy. Rei decided their new group, Yozora, needed a proper recognizable attire, and as such, they started creating one, a very special one at that. Rei was aware of the dangers and advantages of such a thing, but after carefully weighing them, he still decided to get a proper uniform, so to speak. His main reason stemmed from Akatsuki itself. Akatsuki black cloaks with red clouds. Most would believe it was a stupid thing to wear them, and from a certain point of view, they would be absolutely correct. Akatsuki was supposed to be a hidden organization of mercenaries. Their secret purpose was to collect the bijou, and yet every time they attacked a Jinchuriki, it was 2 dudes in black cloaks with red clouds. Very subtle indeed. Not to mention that 2 S-rank Nukenin grouping up was already quite suspicious and alarming, but could still be somehow overlooked and written off as just teaming up for a hard mission. The bets are off the table the second these 2 ninjas start to wear a uniform of a sort, however. Especially if more S-rank Nukenin are sighted wearing the same uniform as them. The whole point of being a secret organization becomes a moot point, as a group of 10 S-rank ninjas would be right in the striking zone of every village, which would mean they would be watched like hawks. And that's before they actually start to attack Jinchuriki. Rei had no idea how they got so far with bijou collecting, since their goal was so obvious. Either the hatred towards the Jinchuriki was really so great it drove the hidden villages near mad and not care about people collecting weapons of mass destruction, or the world itself was plot forcing like mad for it to happen. And yet, despite the reasons why he found the Akatsuki cloak a stupid telltale sign similar to Naruto's Kill Me orange jacket, Rei decided to also make a uniform for Yozora. The reason was simple. In the beginning, it would not bring much to the table, but later on, when their reputation spread, the uniform will become a symbol. The villagers know not to fuck with Akatsuki because they are made out of S-rank ninjas. And they always wear their cloaks and are easy to spot. Rei wanted such recognition for his own group, as while stupid, it was also a very powerful weapon. After all, if he ever wanted someone to do a secret mission, all that would be needed was to take off the Yozora cloak. The first piece of Yozora gear was a pitch black cloak reaching the ankles with a black hood. Rei didn't care what people wore underneath it, so the cloak was it. Now, Rei was quite protective of his girls, so he grouped up with Conan and they got to enhancing these cloaks. Firstly, they decided the hood will be always up during encounters with an enemy, so Rei quickly added a see-through seal on the inner part of the hood. This way, the wearer's vision was not obstructed at all. Secondly, he naturally added a seal to obstruct the vision of anyone trying to peek under the hood. Anyone who tries will see only a black void. This was Rei's measure to protect the identity of his girls. Sure, they said it was redundant, but Rei wouldn't hear of it and glared at them until they relented. And thirdly, Ray added some miscellaneous seals like warming seals that would keep the user warm if activated or cooling seals with the opposite function. There was also a durability seal drawn from the inner part of the cloak, affecting the outermost layer from being damaged. All those seals were self-sustaining by a minuscule amount of nature energy, so they didn't need any chakra from the wearer. The cloak was already something the hidden villages would covet, but Ray was not satisfied yet, and that's where Conan came into the picture. The cloak was made out of 2 layers of black, very comfortable but durable fabric mostly used for ANBU uniforms. Between these 2 layers sewn together were slices of Conan paper tightly put one by one next to each other with minimal gaps between them. The ingenuity in this was the fact that Ray inscribed a sustaining seal on each of these slices, and Conan hardened them the best she could with her earth release. This basically made the entire cloak a better armor than a full plate from chakra metal despite being light and foldable as a feather since the paper was still, in fact, just paper. It would take some serious destructive power to get through the cloak, which was yet another reason why Ray insisted on having a uniform. Akatsuki doesn't really utilize theirs well, but Ray would be damned if he didn't make use of his Fuinjutsu and the protective capabilities of Conan's earth hardening in Yuzura's cloaks. This came at a cost however, as the entire cloak was a shining beacon in the senses of even the weakest chakra sensor, which unfortunately made Ray forsake the idea of invisibility seal on the outer layer of the cloak, and he instead drew a chakra masking seal, which made it virtually invisible to the chakra sensors despite the high chakra output the cloak was giving out at any given moment due to the always active earth hardened slices of paper. Ray might have created his own dimension, but these cloaks, they were a masterpiece on their own. The cloak was mostly made by Ray and Conan, with Tsunade doing the sewing since she was, according to herself, free and had the greatest experience when it came to needlework. Well, as expected of the best medic. Sewing people and clothes mustn't be so different, right? Ringo and May started their own project while the others worked on the cloak. Both were trying to create swords. Ray gave them tons of chakra metal to experiment, and at first, he did so only to indulge them, but when he saw their techniques rapidly improve, he even started debating the option of offering the two a change of occupation from ninja killer to ninja blacksmith. Honestly, Ray had no idea why ninjas didn't use jutsu for crafting. He was in one of the villages where the chakra weapons were made, and yet, no ninja was helping in the process, which took weeks for one blade. Here, May with her lava release and Ringo with her exceptional lighting release could create 10 chakra blades per day, and they were not even that skilled yet. That was actually 2 months ago. The next month, the two blacksmithing she-devils requested Ray's help. He couldn't give the blades full attention, but when he had time, they experimented with putting seals on the blade, which was frankly an annoying endeavor, since every time they had a spar the seals would be damaged. The solution appeared in the middle of the 3rd month. It needed a special ink that could withstand chakra metal melting temperatures, and May had to keep the forged swords in a melted state until Ray inscribed the seals before covering them in another layer of molten chakra metal alloy. The seals were inside of the sword, and finally, they didn't get damaged during the first spar. The sword actually conducted electricity better, imitating Kiba blades, and Ringo was giddy at the future prospects, but it was still a far cry from the actual Kiba blades. Nevertheless, progress was progress. Honestly, Ray was just glad that Ringo and May stopped arguing and found a mutual hobby.